This was a requested tutorial. This tutorial will give you a start on making a kickflip animation using key poses and some refinement. However, due to time, I will not be showing you how to refine and smooth the animation. This will just get you started with the initial blocking stage. There are plenty of tutorials online that will guide you in finalizing the animation. I'll be using a skateboard that I downloaded from basemesh.com. The link is in the description. I will also be using the snow character from Blender. The link is in the description. To bring the skateboard into the scene, I will use the Import FBX option. I will add some very simple materials to the skateboard using the principled shader. I select everything and use Ctrl-J to join the objects. To import the character, I'll use the Append option. Choosing everything in the collection folder. I have my frames per second set to 30. I select the rig and go into pose mode. I select the rig and move Snow so he's bending his knees. I move his right foot onto the tail of the board, slightly angled. I move his left foot toward the nose of the board, again slightly angled. I then make adjustments to his hips, knees, and shoulders. The weight needs to be over his right foot. I bend him forward at the waist and place his arms by his sides. I also move the head and eyes. I select the rig and insert a keyframe on frame 1, for location, rotation, and scale. On frame 5, I move him down along the Z-axis and add keyframes. I copy the keyframes from frame 1 onto frame 10. And I copy the keyframes from frame 5 onto frame 15, and I lower his center of gravity, inserting keyframes. Now it's time for the skateboard animation. In object mode on frame 20, I select the skateboard and add a keyframe for location and rotation. On frame 25, I angle the skateboard so the tail is angled toward the ground and add a keyframe. On frame 30, I move the skateboard up along the Z-axis and add keyframes. On frame 35, I rotate the skateboard around the X On frame 25, I move him back onto the skateboard shifting his weight toward the tail and adding keyframes. On frame 29, I straighten his spine move his hands, and rotate him at his chest. And then move his left foot so it's rotated and flicking off the side of the skateboard. And add keyframes. On frame 33, I move him so he's above the skateboard during its rotation and change his foot, waist, hands, and shoulder positions. I then add keyframes. For the landing animation, on frame 40, I move him back down onto the board, adjusting his foot and hand positions. I also bend his knees a bit and rotate him forward at his hips with his hands out in front of him. And I add the keyframes. On frame 50, I place him back on the skateboard making sure to place him in a squatting position. Rotating his chest and repositioning his hands. I also shift his body weight toward the nose of the skateboard. And add keyframes. I copy the keyframes from frame 1 onto frame 55